A billionaire stops breathing after a severe car accident, but homeless twin girls do the unthinkable, and something incredible happens. The sun had barely risen when the early morning silence was broken by the sound of children's laughter echoing throughout the Thompson house. Emma and Olivia, 7-year-old identical twins, dashed through the hallways, their fiery red hair flying behind them like living flames. Their green eyes sparkled with the same intensity, filled with a contagious joy that seemed to brighten every corner of the place. "Got you!" Emma shouted, catching her sister and wrapping her in a tight hug. Olivia laughed, trying to wriggle free. "That's not fair, you've always been faster." The two girls rolled on the floor, laughing uncontrollably, when a deep, warm voice interrupted their game. Hey, my little flames! What's all this commotion so early?" James Thompson, the twins' father, walked into the room. He was still wearing his firefighter uniform, his face marked by soot from a long overnight shift. But his eyes shone with the same love and energy that radiated from his daughters. "Daddy," the girls shouted in unison, leaping up and rushing to hug him. James scooped them up in his arms, spinning them in the air as though they weighed nothing. The smoky scent on his uniform, unpleasant to most, was for Emma and Olivia a familiar and comforting aroma of home and safety. "How was work, Dad? Did you save a lot of people?" Emma asked, her wide eyes brimming with admiration. James smiled, ruffling his daughter's hair. "It was a quiet night, thank goodness. But you know what that means." "Time to practice first aid," Olivia exclaimed, bouncing with excitement. For the Thompson twins, nothing was more thrilling than the first aid lessons their father taught them. James had a special knack for turning potentially scary techniques into fun, engaging games. "All right, my little heroes in training," James said, taking on a more serious tone, though his eyes were still filled with amusement. "We have an emergency. Mr. Teddy Bear fell out of the tree and is unconscious. What do we do first?" Emma and Olivia immediately got into character, their faces turning adorably serious. They ran over to the giant teddy bear lying unconscious on the living room rug. "First, we check if it's safe to approach," Emma declared, looking around as if searching for imaginary dangers. Olivia nodded vigorously. "Now we check if he's breathing." The girls worked in perfect sync, going through the steps their father had taught them with surprising precision for such young children. James watched, his chest swelling with pride. He knew that one day, this knowledge could mean the difference between life and death. As the twins rescued Mr. Teddy Bear, James couldn't help but remember how it all began. His mind wandered back to that fateful night, nearly 10 years ago, when he first met Sarah. It was a rainy evening, the kind of night that keeps firefighters on high alert. James was on shift when the call came in, a serious accident on the main highway. Without hesitation, he and his team raced to the scene. The sight was chaotic. Crushed cars, shattered glass scattered across the wet asphalt, the acrid smell of gasoline and burnt rubber hanging in the air. James worked tirelessly, helping to free victims from the vehicles and providing vital first aid before the ambulances arrived. That's when he saw her. Sarah was there as the nurse on duty, her determined eyes focused on saving lives, her skilled hands moving with precision as she tended to the injured. Amid the chaos and tragedy, James felt something shift inside him. Hours later, once the dust had settled and the victims had been taken to the hospital, James found Sarah in the waiting room. Both were exhausted, streaked with blood and grime, but there was an undeniable connection between them. "Great job out there," James said, offering Sarah a cup of coffee. She smiled, accepting the drink gratefully. "You weren't too shabby yourself, firefighter." That simple yet profound moment was the start of everything. In the months that followed, James and Sarah grew closer, bonded by their passion for helping others and a love that grew day by day. They were married a year later, in a simple but heartfelt ceremony. James Gueux in his dress uniform and Sarah, radiant in a simple white gown, exchanged vows under the emotional gaze of friends and family. They promised love, companionship, and a life dedicated not only to each other but to making the world a better place. The arrival of the twins, 2 years later, was a delightful surprise. James and Sarah could barely believe it when the doctor announced they would be parents to identical twin girls. Emma and Olivia's birth brought a new dimension to the couple's life, filling their days with laughter, challenges, and a love that seemed to grow exponentially. James was pulled out of his memories by the sound of enthusiastic clapping. Emma and Olivia had revived Mr. Teddy Bear and were now celebrating their success. "Well done, my heroes," James exclaimed, hugging his daughters. "You saved the day once again." At that moment, Sarah walked into the room, smiling at the familiar scene. "What did I miss?" "Mommy!" the girls shouted, running to hug her. "We saved Mr. Teddy Bear." Sarah laughed, lifting the girls into her arms. "I wouldn't expect anything less from my little heroes." The Thompsons' family routine was a delicate balance between the constant danger of James's job and the peaceful home they'd built together. Evenings were always special, with James sharing thrilling stories of his rescues before the girls went to sleep. "Tell us again how you saved that kitten off the roof, Daddy," Emma would ask, her eyes gleaming with admiration. James would laugh, his warm laughter filling the room. All right, but only one story tonight, okay? I have an important shift tomorrow and need some rest." The girls would nod, settling into their beds as James began another one of his exciting tales. Sarah watched from the doorway, her heart overflowing with love for their little family. But fate had other plans for the Thompsons. On a seemingly ordinary night, the phone rang, shattering the home's peacefulness. James picked up, his face growing serious as he listened. "Got it. I'll be there in 10 minutes, he said, hanging up and turning to Sarah with an apologetic look. "A big fire downtown," he explained, already moving to grab his gear. "They need all hands on deck." Sarah felt a tightness in her chest, but forced a smile. "Go, please be careful." James kissed her, a kiss filled with promise and love. "I always am. Tell the girls I love them if I'm not back before they wake up." And with that, he was gone, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts and fears. She had no idea, at that moment, that it would be the last time she would see James alive. Morning arrived grey and cold, as though the sky itself sensed the tragedy to come. Sarah woke alone, James's side of the bed cold and untouched. It wasn't unusual for him to spend the entire night out during a large emergency, but something felt different, heavier in the air. Emma and Olivia came into the room, still in their pajamas, anxious expressions on their faces. "Where's Daddy?" Olivia asked, looking around as though expecting James to appear at any moment. Before Sarah could answer, the doorbell rang, a sharp, insistent sound that seemed to echo through the entire house. Sarah felt her heart sink. Something was terribly wrong. With trembling legs, she went downstairs, the twins close behind. When she opened the door, she found 2 firefighters, their faces somber and eyes red. "Mrs. Thompson," one of them asked, his voice thick with emotion, "may we come in? We have news about James." Sarah's world collapsed at that instant. She knew, even before the words were spoken, that James would not be coming home. The next hours went by in a blur of tears, muffled screams, and desperate embraces. James had died as he had lived, a hero. He entered a burning building to save a child trapped inside and never made it out in time. His final act was shielding the little girl with his own body when the ceiling collapsed. To Emma and Olivia, the news was incomprehensible. How could their dad, the superhero who always came back home, simply not return? They cried, screamed, begged for it to be a nightmare. Sarah held them tightly, her own tears mixing with theirs, unable to give them the comfort she herself did not have. The days that followed were a whirlwind of funeral arrangements, condolence visits, and a grief so deep it seemed impossible to bear. The funeral was a striking demonstration of James's impact on the community. Hundreds of people attended, many of whom he had saved over the years. But when the flowers wilted and the visitors stopped coming, Sarah found herself sinking into an abyss of depression. James's absence was like a black hole, sucking all the light and joy out of her life. Bills began to pile up. The survivors' benefits barely covered basic expenses. Emma and Olivia, once so full of life and joy, became quiet and withdrawn. They watched their mother with worried eyes, sensing the change in the atmosphere of the house that once overflowed with love and laughter. Consumed by grief and financial worries, Sarah began selling the family's belongings. At first, it was small things, a few books, some appliances they rarely used, but soon, larger items began to vanish. The couch where James used to tell stories, the dining table where they shared happy meals, even some of James's clothes that Sarah initially couldn't part with. The house, once a warm home filled with happy memories, became increasingly empty and cold. The bare walls echoed the footsteps of the twins, who now played quietly, as though afraid to disturb the heavy mourning that enveloped the air. One day, about 3 months after James's death, Sarah woke up with a different expression on her face. There was a resolve in her eyes the girls hadn't seen in a long time. "We're going on a walk today," Sarah announced during their meager breakfast. "How about we visit that lovely park in the city center?" Emma and Olivia exchanged surprised yet excited looks. It had been a while since they'd gone anywhere besides school or on essential errands. The park was busy that sunny afternoon. Children ran and played, couples strolled hand in hand, and older folks fed pigeons on the benches. For a moment, the twins felt a spark of their former joy return, running to the swings with laughs that hadn't been heard in a long time. Sarah watched them from a nearby bench, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. After a while, she approached her daughters. "Girls," she said, her voice trembling, "I need to go buy something at that little store over there. Can you wait here at the swings? I'll be back in a few minutes." Emma and Olivia nodded, still caught up in their game. Sarah kissed their foreheads, hugging them for a long moment before stepping away. Minutes turned into hours. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across a park now emptying out. Tired and hungry, Emma and Olivia looked around anxiously, expecting to see their mother return at any moment. "Where's Mom? Emma?" Olivia asked, her voice small and scared. Trying to be strong for her sister, Emma replied, "She'll come back." She promised she would. But as night fell and the park lights turned on, the terrible truth began to sink in. Sarah wouldn't be coming back. Just like their dad, she had left them. Alone in the world, the twins clung to each other, shivering with cold and fear. The distant sound of a siren reminded them of their father, of the warmth of his hugs and the stories of bravery he used to share. "What do we do now?" Olivia whispered, tears streaming down her freckled cheeks. Emma squeezed her sister's hand, a determination growing in her young heart. "We stay together," she said firmly. "Dad taught us to be strong and brave. We'll look after each other, just like he would have wanted." And so the heroes' daughters faced their first night alone, unaware that their own journey of courage and survival was only beginning. James's legacy would live on through them, guiding them through the challenges that lay ahead. Night fell over the park, wrapping Emma and Olivia in a blanket of darkness and uncertainty. The street lamps flickered, casting dancing shadows that looked like monsters to the girls' frightened eyes. The cold intensified, making them shiver in their thin jackets. "Emma, I'm scared," Olivia whispered, clinging to her sister. Trying to be brave, Emma hugged Olivia tightly. "Me too, Liv, but we have to be courageous, just like Dad taught us." The hours dragged on. The silence of the night was occasionally broken by distant cars or barking dogs, each noise making the twins jump. Hunger began to gnaw at them, their stomachs rumbling in protest. With the first rays of sunlight, Emma and Olivia faced the harsh reality of their situation. Hungry, tired, and scared, they needed to find a way forward. The days that followed were a brutal lesson in street life. The twins wandered around the city, quickly learning that survival depended on their wits and courage. One rainy afternoon, while seeking shelter, Emma and Olivia discovered an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The roof had holes, and the floor was littered with trash. But to the exhausted girls, it felt like a palace. "We can stay here," Emma said, inspecting the place. "At least we'll be dry and away from prying eyes." Olivia nodded, helping her sister clear a corner where they could sleep. Using cardboard and old newspapers, they fashioned a makeshift bed. Hunger was a constant companion. The twins learned to identify the best times to ask for food at bakeries and restaurants. They found out that just before closing, many establishments were willing to donate leftover food that would otherwise be thrown out. "Excuse me," Emma would ask timidly at a bakery, "do you have any bread you're going to throw away? We're really hungry." Sometimes they were ignored, other times shooed away, but occasionally they found kind souls who offered not just food, but also a look of compassion that warmed their hearts. One afternoon, while rummaging through a dumpster, they heard a groan. In a dark corner, they found an elderly man, clearly homeless, clutching his arm in pain. "Are you all right, sir?" Olivia asked, approaching cautiously. The man looked at them, his eyes filled with hurt. "I fell and hurt my arm. I think it's broken." Emma and Olivia exchanged glances. The first aid lessons their dad had taught them sprang to mind. "We can help," Emma said, kneeling beside the man. "Our dad was a firefighter, and he taught us a few things." Carefully, the girls examined his arm. It wasn't broken, but there was a nasty cut that needed attention. Using the techniques James had shown them during their teddy bear hospital games, they cleaned and bandaged the man's wound. The man, who introduced himself as Mr. Joe, was amazed at the girls' skill. "You're angels," he said, tears in his eyes. "How can I ever thank you?" Emma and Olivia looked at each other. "Do you know any safe places to sleep?" Emma asked timidly. Mr. Joe smiled kindly. "Come with me. I know some places and people who can help." That encounter marked a turning point in the twins' lives. Mr. Joe introduced them to a small community of homeless individuals who looked out for one another. In exchange for providing basic first aid, the girls received protection and guidance on surviving the streets. Emma and Olivia developed a system for keeping each other safe. While one slept, the other stood guard. They learned to recognize warning signs of danger and trust their instincts. "Remember when Dad taught us about teamwork?" Emma said one night as they settled in to sleep in their corner of the warehouse. "He'd say we're doing a great job looking out for each other." Over time, the twins established a routine. In the mornings, they would head to a busy intersection where they'd ask for spare change from drivers at the traffic lights. Emma discovered that holding a sign with a sad message increased their chances of receiving money. "Please help 2 orphaned sisters," read the sign, written in childish letters on a piece of cardboard. People in cars often gave them coins or even bills, moved by the sight of 2 young girls alone on the streets. Emma and Olivia saved every penny, knowing they might need it for emergencies. But street life was tough and dangerous. Cold was a constant enemy, especially at night. The girls learned to sleep huddled together, sharing body heat. Hunger was another daily battle. Some days, they managed only a few scraps, their stomachs aching from emptiness. In those moments, Emma told stories to distract Olivia, recalling the tales their dad used to share. The scariest threats, however, came from ill-intentioned people. One night, as they were returning to the warehouse, they were approached by a suspicious-looking man. "Hey, girls," he called in a drawling voice. "You lost. I can help you get home." Emma felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. Something about the man's tone set off alarm bells in her mind. "No, thank you," she responded firmly, pulling Olivia closer. "We know our way." The man took a step toward them. "Come on, don't be shy. I've got candy in my car." Right then, Emma remembered her father's lessons about dangerous situations. Without hesitating, she screamed at the top of her lungs, "Fire! Fire!" The shout drew the attention of people nearby. Lights flicked on in windows, and the man, startled, ran off. Shaking, the twins dashed back to the warehouse, their hearts pounding. "You were amazing, Emma," Olivia said, still breathless. "How did you know what to do?" Emma forced a weak smile. "I remembered what Dad always said. If we're in danger, shouting fire draws more attention than calling for help." That night, lying in their corner of the warehouse, Emma and Olivia thought about how much their lives had changed. They were alone, cold and often hungry, but they had each other. And somehow their father's teachings continued to protect them, even after his passing. "Emma," Olivia whispered in the darkness. "Yes, Liv? Do you think we'll ever have a real home again?" Emma was silent for a moment, thinking, "I don't know, Liv. But I promise that, no matter what happens, we'll always be a family, you and me." The twins fell asleep clinging to each other, facing another night on the streets but comforted by the certainty that together they could overcome whatever life threw at them. Their father's legacy of courage and love lived on in them, guiding them through the darkness toward an uncertain but hopeful future. A month had passed since Emma and Olivia were abandoned at the park by their mother. 30 days of constant struggle for survival, of cold nights and uncertain days. The twins, now with a wisdom beyond their 7 years, had adapted to the harsh reality of street life with surprising resilience. It was Monday morning, just after sunrise, when Emma and Olivia left their makeshift shelter in the abandoned warehouse. With their red hair unkempt and clothes worn, they headed to their usual spot, the traffic light on the city's main avenue, where the steady flow of cars offered the best chance of getting some spare change. "Remember, Liv," said Emma as they walked, "we have to get more than we did yesterday. Winter's coming and we need new blankets." Olivia nodded, her green eyes reflecting a determination no child should have to show. "We'll get it, Emma. We always do." The girls reached the traffic light just before rush hour. The day promised to be busy, with corporate employees hurrying to their offices in the city's financial district. Emma and Olivia took their strategic positions, Emma holding the faded sign pleading for help, while Olivia prepared to approach drivers when the light turned red. The hours passed slowly. Some people ignored the girls, others cast pitying looks, and occasionally someone would toss a few coins or bills through the car window. Emma and Olivia thanked each donation with genuine smiles, carefully storing every penny in a small pouch they carried. It was around 9 a.m. when everything changed. Michael Blackwood, one of the city's wealthiest and most influential businessmen, was late for a crucial meeting. His newest venture, a major urban revitalization project worth billions, depended on it. Normally a cautious driver, Michael pressed the accelerator of his luxury sports car, dangerously weaving between other vehicles. Meanwhile, at the traffic light, Emma noticed his car approaching at high speed. "Liv, watch out!" she shouted, instinctively pulling her sister back. It all happened in seconds. Michael, trying to beat the yellow light, didn't see the truck crossing the intersection. The collision was deafening. The sports car slammed violently into the side of the truck, the sounds of twisting metal and shattering glass echoing down the avenue. Michael's car spun out of control, flipping over several times before finally coming to rest upside down in the middle of the street. Smoke began pouring from the crushed hood, and a terrifying silence followed the chaos. For a moment, no one moved. Then, as if waking from a trance, a crowd began forming around the wreck. People got out of their cars, others gathered on the sidewalks, all in shock. "Someone call an ambulance," a woman shouted. "Oh my God, is he alive?" Another voice asked in the crowd. "Stay back, this car could explode," a man warned. The panic was palpable. Everyone wanted to help, but no one knew how. The fear of making things worse paralyzed even those with the best intentions. Emma and Olivia watched in wide-eyed horror. The crash brought back painful memories of their father, of the stories he told about rescues and the importance of staying calm in an emergency. That's when Emma noticed something. Through the shattered windshield, she could see the driver. He was motionless, hanging upside down by his seatbelt. His skin was pale, and Emma couldn't tell if his chest was moving. "Liv," Emma whispered, squeezing her sister's hand. "I think he needs help. Right now." Olivia looked at her sister, immediately understanding. "But Emma, we're scared. What if we mess up?" Emma closed her eyes for a moment, remembering her father's words. A true hero isn't someone who feels no fear, but someone who acts despite it. "We have to try, Liv," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly. "Dad wouldn't forgive us if we didn't help." The twins exchanged a look of mutual understanding and hand in hand began to push through the crowd. Some people tried to stop them, but the determination in the girls' eyes made them step aside. Reaching the overturned car, Emma took immediate charge. "Liv, keep an eye on his breathing, like Dad taught us. I'll try to get him out of the car." Carefully, Emma crawled into the wrecked vehicle. The smell of gasoline and smoke was strong, but she ignored it, focusing on the task at hand. With trembling fingers, she unfastened the seatbelt, supporting Michael so he wouldn't fall abruptly. "I need help getting him out," Emma yelled. Two men from the crowd, inspired by the small girl's courage, approached to assist. Together, they managed to pull Michael out of the car and lay him on the asphalt. Emma immediately checked for vital signs. Just as her father had demonstrated countless times during their rescue games, her heart froze when she realized Michael wasn't breathing. "Liv, he's not breathing." "I'm starting compressions," Emma said, her voice shaking but resolute. Olivia nodded, positioning herself by Michael's head. "I'm watching his breathing. Emma, you can do this." Emma began chest compressions, pressing down on Michael's chest with all the strength her small body could muster. She counted out loud, recalling her father's lessons. 1, 2, 3, 4. The crowd watched in silence, amazed by the courage and skill of these two street girls. Someone finally snapped out of shock and called for an ambulance. While monitoring Michael's breathing, Olivia spoke words of encouragement, both for her sister and the unconscious man. "You're doing great, Emma. Keep going. And sir, please come back to us. So many people need you." The twins continued their efforts tirelessly. Emma, arms aching and sweat dripping down her face, refused to stop. Olivia, tears in her eyes, kept watch, silently praying for a miracle. Minutes felt like hours. The crowd stood in tense silence, broken only by Emma's steady counting and Olivia's soft words of encouragement. Suddenly, just when Emma felt she couldn't keep going any longer, it happened. Michael gasped deeply, his eyes fluttering open in shock. "He's breathing!" Olivia cried out, a look of relief shining on her tear-streaked face. The crowd erupted in applause and shouts of joy. Emma, trembling with exhaustion and relief, sat down next to Michael, who was now coughing and trying to orient himself. That was the moment the sound of ambulance sirens became audible in the distance. "Emma, we have to go," Olivia whispered urgently. "Remember what Mr. Joe said about the police and street kids?" Emma hesitated for a moment, reluctant to leave Michael, but she knew Olivia was right. They couldn't risk being caught and separated. With one last glance at Michael, now being tended to by the crowd, the twins slipped away. They blended into the gathering of onlookers and disappeared down a side street just in time to avoid the arriving ambulances and police cars. From a nearby alley, Emma and Olivia watched closely as paramedics jumped out of the ambulance and ran toward Michael. The scene unfolding before them felt surreal, like something they were watching in a movie. The paramedics worked efficiently, their professional voices cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "Male, approximately 40, cardiac arrest reversed by bystanders," one of them reported while another checked Michael's vital signs. Emma and Olivia looked on, fascinated, recognizing some of the procedures the paramedics were performing. It was like watching their father's lessons come to life. "Look, Liv," Emma whispered, discreetly pointing. "They're checking his pupils, just like Dad taught us." Olivia nodded, her eyes wide with admiration. "And that device they're putting on his finger, it's for measuring oxygen in the blood, right?" The girls watched, captivated, as the paramedics worked swiftly to stabilize Michael. They carefully placed him on a stretcher, secured a cervical collar, and attached portable monitors. "Blood pressure is stabilizing," announced one of the paramedics. "We're moving him to the ambulance now." Emma and Olivia held their breath as the stretcher was lifted, and Michael was carried toward the ambulance. For the first time, the girls got a clear look at the man they had saved. Despite the cuts and bruises, there was something oddly familiar about him, as though they'd seen him somewhere before. "Emma," Olivia whispered, squeezing her sister's hand, "do you think we did the right thing? What if he doesn't make it?" Emma swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the responsibility they had taken on. "We did what Dad would have done, Liv. We gave him a chance. Now we have to trust the doctors to do the rest." The ambulance doors slammed shut, and the sirens blared once again as the vehicle sped away. Emma and Olivia remained in the alley, watching until the ambulance disappeared from view, carrying Michael Blackwood to the hospital, and, unbeknownst to them, toward a destiny that would change their lives forever. The echo of the sirens gradually faded, leaving behind a strange, heavy silence. The crowd began to disperse, but the buzz of conversation still lingered in the air. People discussed the accident, the miracle of the resuscitation, and especially the two mysterious girls who had appeared out of nowhere to save a life. Emma and Olivia stayed hidden, their hearts still pounding from the adrenaline and excitement of what had just happened. They watched the police interview witnesses, trying to piece together the events leading to the accident and subsequent rescue. "It was two little girls," they heard a woman tell an officer. "So small, red hair. They came out of nowhere and knew exactly what to do. I've never seen anything like it." "It's true," agreed a nearby man. "They saved that guy's life. They were like angels, I swear." Emma and Olivia glanced at each other, a mix of pride and fear in their eyes. On the one hand, they were glad to have helped, glad to have done something their father would have been proud of. On the other, they were terrified of being discovered and separated. "Emma," Olivia whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "what if they find us? What if they put us in an orphanage?" Emma hugged her sister, trying to convey a confidence she didn't fully feel. "They won't find us, Liv. We're smart, remember. We'll be okay." The twins lingered in the alley for a few more minutes, watching as the accident site was cleaned up. The wreck of Michael's car was towed away, traffic gradually returned to normal, and city life seemed to resume its usual pace. "Let's go, Liv," Emma finally said. "We have to get back to the warehouse. We still need food for today." With one last look at the spot where their paths had crossed with Michael Blackwood's, Emma and Olivia turned away and slipped into the city's shadows, leaving the scene of their heroic act behind and returning to the harsh reality of their lives on the streets. As they walked back to their makeshift shelter, the twins reflected on that morning's events. The gravity of what they had done began to settle on their small shoulders. "Emma," Olivia said after a few minutes of silence, "do you think Dad would be proud of us?" Emma stopped, turning to face her sister. Their matching green eyes, so like Olivia's, shone with a mix of pride, sadness, and determination. "I'm sure he would, Liv," Emma replied softly but firmly. "Remember what he always said. A hero isn't about wearing a cape or having superpowers. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard or scary." Olivia nodded, a small smile tugging at her freckled face. "So he'd say we were brave." "Yes," Emma agreed, taking her sister's hand. "And he'd remind us we have to keep being brave. Come on, we have a long day ahead." The twins continued walking, their steps a bit lighter despite the exhaustion. They had no idea that their actions that morning had set off a chain of events that would change their lives forever. Meanwhile, the ambulance carrying Michael Blackwood raced through city streets, sirens wailing. Inside, paramedics continued their efforts to stabilize him. "Blood pressure at 100/60, heart rate 88, one of them announced. "He's responding well," said another. Those girls really did save his life. As the ambulance approached the hospital, Michael began to regain consciousness. His eyes opened slowly, dazed and confused. Where am I?" he murmured. "Sir, you've been in a car accident," explained one of the paramedics. "We're taking you to the hospital. Stay calm, you're in good hands." Michael tried to nod, but pain stopped him. His last memories before losing consciousness were hazy. The deafening crash, the world spinning, and then two small red-haired figures. "The girls," he whispered, before slipping back into unconsciousness. The ambulance finally reached the hospital, its doors opening to reveal a team of doctors and nurses ready to receive the patient. Michael was quickly transferred to a gurney and whisked into the ER, disappearing behind the double doors. While the medical team fought to save Michael Blackwood's life, Emma and Olivia arrived at their abandoned warehouse, exhausted, hungry, but carrying a new light in their eyes. They settled into their corner, sharing what little food they had managed to gather before the accident. "Emma?" Olivia called, her voice heavy with sleep. "Yes, Liv? Do you think we'll ever know if that man is okay?" Emma pulled the tattered blanket over them. "I don't know, Liv, but we did our part. Now we have to keep looking after each other, like always." The twins fell asleep, curled up together, unaware that destiny had already set in motion the gears that would forever change their lives. In the hospital, hovering between life and death, Michael Blackwood dreamed of two small red-haired heroes, determined to find them as soon as he regained consciousness. Outside, the city went on at its usual frantic pace, unaware of the drama unfolding both in the hospital ward and the abandoned warehouse. But the lives of Michael, Emma, and Olivia had become intertwined in a way none of them could have foreseen, and nothing would ever be the same again. Michael Blackwood slowly opened his eyes, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room. Confused and disoriented, he struggled to understand where he was or what had happened. Pain coursed through his body, and the steady beeping of heart monitors by his side quickly reminded him of the accident. "Mr. Blackwood," a nurse approached his bed, smiling kindly. "It's good to see you awake. How are you feeling?" Michael tried to speak, but his throat felt raw. The nurse offered him a cup of water, which he accepted gratefully. What happened?" he finally managed to ask, his voice hoarse. "You were in a pretty serious car accident," the nurse explained. "You're very lucky. If it hadn't been for those two little Girls?" Michael interrupted, a vague memory of red hair and green eyes flickering in his mind. "What girls?" The nurse smiled. "Two young girls who were there at the scene. From what witnesses said, they performed CPR and kept you alive until the ambulance arrived." "True heroes." Michael closed his eyes, trying to recall. Flashes of the accident played through his mind. The crash, the pain, the darkness. And then, as if in a distant dream, the image of two small figures hovering over him, their childish voices calling him back to life. "Where are they?" he asked, opening his eyes again. "I need to thank them." The nurse's expression turned regretful. "Unfortunately, no one knows. They disappeared before the police arrived. Some say they're homeless children." Michael felt a pang in his chest, unrelated to his physical injuries. Homeless children. Two little girls, alone on the dangerous city streets, had risked everything to save the life of a complete stranger. In that moment, Michael Blackwood made a decision that would change not only his life, but Emma and Olivia's as well. As soon as he was strong enough to use a phone, Michael called his team. His personal assistant, lawyers, and most importantly, the best private investigators money could hire. "I want you to find those girls," he ordered, his voice still weak but filled with determination. "Use whatever resources you need. Security footage, witnesses, anything. I don't care about the cost. Just find them." In the days that followed, while Michael recovered in the hospital, an extensive search operation was launched. Investigators painstakingly pored over surveillance footage from the area, frame by frame, looking for any clues about the mysterious rescuers. Witnesses were interviewed, their descriptions meticulously noted and cross-referenced. Two little girls, twins, red hair, green eyes, around 6 or 7 years old, wearing worn clothes, but clean, skilled in first aid, as though they had been trained. The investigators began to track a pattern of movement. There were accounts of people seeing the girls begging at traffic lights, sleeping in parks, looking for food near restaurants. Slowly, a map of the twins' life on the streets took shape. Michael, though confined to his hospital bed, became obsessed with the search. He demanded constant updates and spent hours poring over reports and theories. His physical recovery was swift, driven by his determination to find the girls who had saved his life. A week after the accident, the first concrete report arrived. Grainy photos from security cameras showed two small red-haired figures. The images weren't clear, but they were enough to confirm the twins' existence. Michael studied the photos for hours, a strange sense of familiarity growing inside him. Suddenly, like a bolt of lightning, realization struck him. "I've seen them," he murmured, staring at the images. "I've passed them before on the street, near my office." Memories flooded back of rushed days, running from one meeting to another, driving by two small figures at a traffic light without ever truly seeing them. How many times had he ignored their pleas for help, too wrapped up in his own life to notice two desperate children? Guilt and resolve surged within Michael. He no longer just wanted to find the girls to thank them. He felt he owed them. He owed them for saving his life and for all those times he had failed to notice their suffering. As days passed, the search intensified. The investigators followed every lead, every rumor about the twins' whereabouts. Finally, exactly 1 week after the accident, the news Michael had been waiting for arrived. "Sir, we believe we've located the girls' shelter," the lead investigator reported. "It's an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city." We're almost certain they're there. Michael, who had been discharged from the hospital the previous day, didn't hesitate. Get the car ready. I'm going myself. His assistants tried to dissuade him, warning that he was still recovering and it could be dangerous. But Michael was adamant. He needed to see the girls with his own eyes to thank them personally. The sun was setting when Michael's car stopped at a discreet distance from the abandoned warehouse. His heart pounded, a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Stay here, he ordered his driver and security detail. I'm going alone. I don't want to scare them. Stepping carefully, Michael approached the warehouse. The place was desolate, with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. How could two little girls survive in a place like this? He slipped inside quietly, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. Then he saw them, curled up in a corner, clinging to one another under a ragged blanket, were Emma and Olivia. Michael felt his heart tighten. Seeing them so small and vulnerable brought tears to his eyes. He moved closer slowly, trying not to startle them. "Hello," he said softly. The girls woke with a start, their eyes wide with fear at the sight of a stranger. "Please don't be scared," Michael continued, kneeling so he was at their level. "I'm not going to hurt you. So I'm here to thank you." Emma, ever the protector, placed herself in front of Olivia. "Thank us for what?" she asked, her small voice firm. Michael gave a gentle smile. "For saving my life. The car accident. Remember, I'm the man you helped." Recognition flickered in the twins' eyes. Olivia peered out from behind her sister, curiosity conquering her fear. "Are you okay?" she asked shyly. Michael nodded, tears now freely rolling down his face. "Yes, thanks to you. You're true heroes." Slowly, Michael gained the girls' trust. They told him their story, about their firefighter father, the first aid lessons, the abandonment, and their struggle to survive on the streets. Michael listened, his heart breaking for the pain these two innocent children had endured. When they finished, he made a decision. "Emma, Olivia," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "you saved my life. Now, if you'll let me, I'd like to save yours. Come with me. Let me give you a home, food, safety. And I promise we'll find your mom and figure out what happened." The twins looked at each other, years of distrust battling the hope that Michael's words sparked in their hearts. "Can we stay together?" Emma asked, squeezing Olivia's hand. Michael smiled, holding out his hands to them. "Always, I promise." With hesitation, Emma and Olivia each took Michael's hands. In that moment, as they left the dark warehouse behind for the twilight outside, a new life began for the three lost souls fate had brought together. Michael gently guided them to his car, where his team waited anxiously. His assistant's expressions of shock at seeing two dirty, ragged girls did not go unnoticed by him. "Everyone," Michael announced, his voice laden with emotion and resolve. "Meet Emma and Olivia. They're my honored guests and must be treated with the utmost respect and care." As the car pulled away toward Michael's mansion, Emma and Olivia huddled together in the back seat, their small hands still gripping Michael's tightly. They gazed out the window, watching the familiar street slip by, scarcely believing how drastically their lives had changed. Michael observed them, his heart filled with conflicting emotions: gratitude, compassion, determination, and a growing sense of responsibility for these two young lives fate had placed in his path. "Girls," he said gently, causing them to look at him, "I promise you this is only the beginning of a new journey. Together, we'll discover what happened to your mum, and I'll do everything in my power to give you the life you deserve." Emma and Olivia nodded silently, their eyes bright with a mixture of hope and apprehension. As the car drove through the night, taking them toward an uncertain but promising future, the twins allowed themselves, for the first time in a long while, to dream of a better tomorrow. Michael's search had ended, but a new journey was just beginning. A journey of healing, discovery, and possibly redemption for everyone involved. As the car approached Michael's mansion, the bright city lights gave way to a quieter, tree-lined neighborhood. Emma and Olivia, exhausted by the day's emotions, had fallen asleep in the back seat, their heads resting gently against each other. Michael watched them with a mix of tenderness and worry. He knew the coming days, weeks, and months would be challenging. Adjusting to a new life, dealing with the trauma of abandonment and the loss of their father, plus searching for the girl's mother, there was a long road ahead. When the car finally pulled up in front of the imposing mansion, Michael gently woke the twins. "Emma, Olivia," he said softly, "we're here. This is your new home." The girls rubbed their eyes, blinking in surprise at the sight of the massive house before them. It was bigger than any building they had ever seen up close. "Shall we go inside?" Michael asked, extending a hand to each of them. With a mixture of fear and curiosity, Emma and Olivia took Michael's hands and stepped out of the car. As they climbed the steps to the entrance, Michael silently vowed to do everything in his power to give them the home, love, and security they deserved. The doors of Michael Blackwood's mansion opened, revealing a whole new world for Emma and Olivia. The twins, still holding hands, took their first hesitant steps into the grand foyer, their eyes wide with amazement. "Welcome to your new home," Michael said kindly, watching the girls' reactions. Emma and Olivia looked around, speechless. The high ceiling, the crystal chandeliers, the paintings on the walls. It was like stepping into a fairy tale. It was a stark contrast to the abandoned warehouse they had called home just hours earlier. Is all this ours?" Olivia whispered, as though she feared speaking aloud might make it all vanish. Michael smiled, kneeling to their level. "Yes, it's yours now. Shall we take a tour? I have a special surprise to show you." He guided them through the house, patiently explaining each room. The enormous kitchen made the girls' stomachs rumble, reminding everyone that they probably hadn't eaten properly in days. The library impressed Emma, who had always loved her dad's stories. The TV room, with its massive screen, made Olivia's eyes light up. Finally, they reached the second floor. Michael stopped in front of a door decorated with Emma and Olivia in colorful letters. "This is your room," he announced, opening the door with a flourish. The twins stood there, mouths agape. The room was every child's dream. 2 cozy beds with princess bedding, shelves filled with books and toys, a life-size dollhouse in the corner, and even a small slide leading to a ball pit. "Michael had it all prepared while you were on your way here," explained the housekeeper, who had followed them discreetly. "He wanted everything to be perfect for your arrival." Emma and Olivia exchanged glances, barely able to believe it. Tears welled up in their tired, grimy faces. "Is everything all right?" Michael asked, concerned. Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. It's been so long since we had a real room." Michael felt his heart constrict. "Well, now you do. And no one will ever take this away from you, I promise." The housekeeper gently suggested the girls take a bath before dinner. Emma and Olivia were awestruck by the ensuite bathroom, with its huge bathtub and strawberry-scented bath products. For the first time in months, the twins enjoyed a genuine hot bath. The water washed away not just the dirt, but also some of the heaviness they carried on their small shoulders. After their bath, they found new clothes waiting for them. Soft, warm pajamas, something they hadn't worn since living with their parents. Dressing in clean, comfortable clothes felt almost sacred to the girls. Dinner was served in the main dining room. The table, large enough for 12, seemed enormous for the 2 small figures seated at one end, with Michael at the head. The elaborate dishes and abundance of food were overwhelming. Emma and Olivia ate cautiously, as though afraid the food might be taken away at any moment. Michael noticed this, feeling a pang in his heart. "Please, eat as much as you like," he encouraged them. "There's plenty more in the kitchen, and tomorrow there will be even more. You'll never have to go hungry again." Slowly, the girls began to relax, savoring each bite as if it might be their last. Michael watched them, mentally noting their preferences and planning how to help them feel more at ease. In the days that followed, Michael began the process of obtaining temporary custody of the twins. His lawyers worked tirelessly to navigate the bureaucracy, while he focused on helping Emma and Olivia feel at home. Acknowledging that the girls would need professional help to cope with their trauma, Michael hired Dr. Samantha Lewis, a renowned child psychologist specializing in abandonment and trauma cases. "They're going to need time, patience, and a lot of love," Dr. Lewis explained after her first session with the twins. What they've been through has left deep scars, but children can be incredibly resilient. With the right environment and support, they can overcome this. Meanwhile, the investigators Michael had hired continued their relentless search for Sarah, the girl's mother. Every lead was followed, every possibility explored, but so far, without success. Emma and Olivia's adaptation to their new life was a roller coaster of emotions. There were moments of pure joy, like discovering they could eat ice cream for breakfast if they wanted, or when Michael took them shopping for new clothes. But there were also difficult moments. Nightmares were frequent, the girls waking in the middle of the night screaming, calling for their parents. Michael learned to rush to their room at the first sign of distress, offering comfort and security. Their fears manifested in unexpected ways. Emma developed a habit of hiding food in her room, afraid it would run out someday. Olivia feared being alone, trailing after Michael or the housekeeper as though she were their shadow, but each day brought small victories. The twins' laughter, once rare, began to echo through the mansion's halls more frequently. They started to explore the property, discovering the garden and pool with growing enthusiasm. Michael watched it all with a mix of joy and concern. He knew the road ahead would be long and hard, but he was determined to give Emma and Olivia the life they deserved. With every smile, every small triumph the girls experienced, he felt certain he had done the right thing by bringing them into his life. One night, as he tucked the twins into bed, Olivia asked timidly, "Michael, can we stay here forever?" Michael felt his heart melt. "If it's up to me, yes," he answered gently. "This is your home now." Emma, ever cautious, looked at him seriously. "Even if they find our mom?" Michael hesitated for a moment, aware that the question carried more weight than it seemed. "We'll figure that out when the time comes," he finally said. "But I promise that, no matter what happens, you'll always have a home with me." The girls seemed satisfied with that answer, settling into their beds. Michael kissed their foreheads before leaving the room, his heart filled with a love he never imagined he could feel. On his way back to his office, Michael reflected on how much his life had changed in recent weeks. The cold, calculating businessman he had once been felt like a distant memory. Emma and Olivia had brought color and purpose to a life that used to be lonely. Sitting at his desk, Michael looked at the pile of investigation reports. Somewhere out there, Sarah was hiding, holding the answers to the many questions that haunted the twins. He would do anything to find her, not just for their sake, but to understand how a mother could leave her daughters behind. With a sigh, Michael picked up the top report. The search continued, but for now, he focused on healing Emma and Olivia's broken hearts, one day at a time. While Michael pored over the reports, a soft sound caught his attention. Looking up, he saw Emma standing in the office doorway, her sleepy eyes and new teddy bear clutched tight to her chest. "Emma, everything okay, sweetie?" Michael asked, immediately standing up. The girl nodded shyly. "I just wanted to make sure you were still here," she murmured. Michael felt his heart ache. He walked over to Emma, kneeling to meet her eyes. "I'll always be here for you, Emma. Always." Emma suddenly hugged him, surprising Michael. He returned the embrace, feeling her small body relax in his arms. "Come on, I'll take you back to bed," Michael said softly, picking Emma up in his arms. As he carried her to the twins' bedroom, Michael thought about the long road that still lay ahead. But with each small moment like this, he knew they were moving in the right direction. Emma and Olivia's new life was just beginning, and Michael was determined to make it the best it could be. A week had passed since Michael brought Emma and Olivia to his mansion. Their days were filled with a mix of simple joys and emotional challenges as the twins adapted to their new life, and Michael learned how to be a paternal figure. That sunny Saturday morning, Michael decided it was time to have a deeper conversation with the girls about their past. He found them in the garden, happily playing with a set of colorful balls he had bought for them. "Emma, Olivia," he called gently, approaching them. "May I join you for a moment? There's something important I'd like to discuss." The twins stopped playing, exchanging apprehensive glances before nodding. Michael sat on the grass with them, forming a small circle. "Girl," he began, choosing his words carefully, I know moving in here has been a huge change for you both, and I know it must be hard to talk about your mom." Emma and Olivia tensed at the mention of their mother. Michael noticed and continued gently. "I don't want to push you, but I was thinking maybe we could talk about her a little. Maybe you could tell me what she was like, what she did." Silence fell. Olivia looked at Emma, as if asking for permission to speak. Emma, always the protector, gave a small nod. "She was a nurse," Olivia said quietly. "She worked in a big hospital." Michael nodded encouragingly. "That's great, Olivia. Do you remember anything else about her work?" Emma frowned in concentration. "She used to wear a badge," she said slowly. "It had her name on it, Sarah Bennett." Michael's heart sped up. A full name was exactly what his investigators needed. "Sarah Bennett," he repeated carefully. "Are you sure that was her name?" Olivia nodded vigorously. "Yes, I remember the badge. It had her photo and said, Sarah Bennett, registered nurse." Michael struggled to hide his excitement, keeping his expression calm so as not to alarm the girls. "You two are very brave for sharing that with me," he said, hugging them. "Thank you for trusting me." As soon as he finished talking with the twins, Michael hurried to his office. With trembling hands, he grabbed the phone and dialed the lead investigator. "I have a name," he said without preamble. "Sarah Bennett, registered nurse. Start the search immediately." Over the following days, Michael could hardly focus on anything else. He checked his phone constantly, waiting for updates from the investigators. Emma and Olivia noticed his tense behavior, exchanging worried looks when they thought he wasn't watching. Finally, after 3 days of intense searching, the final report arrived. Michael opened it with shaking hands, his eyes devouring the information. Sarah Bennett, 38 years old, registered nurse at the Central Hospital in the city. Current address, Sunflower Street, 287, apartment 14. Divorced, no recorded children. Michael felt a whirlwind of emotions, relief at finally finding Sarah, anger at the thought of her abandonment, and a strange anxiety over what he would do next. Without a second thought, he grabbed his keys and headed out, pausing only to tell the housekeeper he'd be gone for a few hours and to ask her to watch over the girls. The drive to the hospital seemed endless. Michael parked and walked into the reception area, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. "Good afternoon," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'd like to speak with Sarah Bennett, please." The receptionist eyed him curiously. "She's on shift today. May I ask what this is regarding?" Michael hesitated. "It's a personal matter. Very important." After a tense moment, the receptionist nodded and made an internal call. "Sarah Bennett, please report to the front desk." "Sarah Bennett? Front desk?" The minutes that followed felt like ages. Michael was about to ask again when he heard footsteps approaching. He turned and felt the world come to a halt. There, wearing a nurse's uniform and looking confused, was Sarah. The confusion on her face slowly gave way to shock, and she grew pale, her hands beginning to tremble. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Michael felt tears welling in his eyes. "Sarah," he responded, his voice thick with emotion. For a moment, they stood there in silence, father and daughter staring at each other, years of pain, regret, and longing passing between them in an instant. Suddenly, as if driven by an invisible force, Sarah threw herself into Michael's arms. He held her tightly, tears now streaming freely down his face. "I'm so sorry," Sarah sobbed against his chest. "I'm so sorry." Michael hugged her even tighter, stroking her hair the way he had when she was a child. "Shh, it's all right now. I'm here." Aware of the curious looks around them, they pulled apart slightly. Sarah wiped away her tears and looked at her father. Can we talk somewhere private?" she asked hesitantly. Michael nodded, and Sarah led him to a small and empty break room. They sat down, a heavy silence filling the space. How did you find me?" Sarah finally asked. Michael took a deep breath. "It's a long story, but first, Sarah, I have to know. Why did you abandon your daughters?" Sarah went pale again, fresh tears brimming in her eyes. "Do you know about Emma and Olivia?" Michael nodded grimly. "They literally saved my life, Sarah." Over the next few minutes, Michael told Sarah everything about the accident, the miraculous rescue by the twins, and how he'd found them living on the streets. Sarah listened, horrified and amazed at the same time. When Michael finished, she covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I don't even know where to start," she said at last, her voice shaking. "After James died, I was lost. Depression swallowed me up. I could barely take care of myself, let alone 2 little girls." She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I thought they'd be better off without me, that someone would find them and give them the home I no longer could. I never imagined they'd end up on the streets." Michael listened in silence, his heart breaking for the obvious pain his daughter was in. Part of him wanted to shout at her, to condemn her for what she had done, but another part understood the desperation that could drive someone to make such decisions. "Sarah," he said gently, taking her hands in his, "what you did was terrible, but you're here now. We have a chance to make things right." Sarah looked at him with eyes filled with hope and fear. How could they ever forgive me? How can you forgive me?" Michael offered a sad smile. "Forgiveness is a process, Sarah. It won't happen overnight. But we can start now. Emma and Olivia need their mother. And I need my daughter back." They talked for hours, sharing stories of the lost years, crying over missed opportunities, occasionally laughing at the coincidences that had brought them together again. Finally, as the sun began to set, they reached an agreement. Sarah would visit the mansion the next day to meet the twins. It would be the first step on a long journey of healing and reconciliation. As they said their goodbyes at the hospital entrance, Michael hugged Sarah once more. "See you tomorrow, daughter," he said softly. Sarah smiled through her tears. "See you tomorrow, Dad." Michael drove home, feeling exhausted but hopeful. As he headed back to the place where Emma and Olivia waited for him, he reflected on the strange paths of fate that had returned his fragmented family to him. Tomorrow would be a new day, filled with challenges and emotions. But for the first time in a long while, Michael felt his family was whole again. The puzzle was finally coming together, and he couldn't wait to see the finished picture. Arriving home, Michael was greeted by Emma and Olivia, who ran to hug him. He wrapped them in his arms, overwhelmed with emotion at the thought of what the next day would bring. "Is everything all right, Michael?" Emma asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. Michael smiled, stroking the twins' hair. "Yes, sweetie. Actually, it's better than all right. I have a surprise for you tomorrow." The twins exchanged curious looks, but Michael kept his secret. As he led them inside for dinner, he knew it would be a long night of preparations and anticipation. Later, lying in bed, Michael thought about the extraordinary events that had transformed his life in recent weeks. Once a lonely man focused solely on business, he now found himself at the center of a reassembled family, with all its complexities and challenges. With a deep sigh, he closed his eyes, ready to face whatever tomorrow held. The next day's reunion would only be the beginning of a new journey for all of them. 2 days had passed since Michael and Sarah's emotional meeting at the hospital. The Blackwood mansion was steeped in nervous anticipation. Michael had prepared Emma and Olivia for the visit, explaining that someone very important would be coming to see them, but without revealing her identity. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the doorbell rang. Michael, who had been pacing in the living room, froze for a moment before heading to the door. He opened it to reveal Sarah, pale and visibly shaking. "Hi, Dad," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael gave her a brief hug, feeling the tension in her body. "It's going to be okay," he murmured, more to himself than to her. He guided her inside, to the living room where Emma and Olivia waited. The twins were seated on the sofa, hands clasped, eyes wide with curiosity and apprehension. When Sarah walked in, time seemed to stand still. The girls stared at her, recognition slowly giving way to a storm of emotions on their young faces. "Mom?" Olivia was the first to break the silence, her voice small and uncertain. Sarah took a step forward, tears already streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart, it's me." What followed was a moment of emotional chaos. Olivia burst into sobs, while Emma stood up abruptly, her face a mask of anger and pain. "How could you?" Emma shouted, her tiny fists clenched. "How could you leave us?" Sarah collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry," she repeated through her tears. "I'm so sorry, my girls." Michael stepped in, positioning himself between Sarah and the twins. "I know this is hard for everyone," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But we need to talk, all of us." Gently, he guided Sarah to an armchair and sat down with the girls on the sofa. Emma was still trembling with anger, while Olivia cried silently behind her sister. "Sarah," Michael began softly, "I think you have some explaining to do." Sarah nodded, wiping away her tears and trying to steady herself. She looked directly at her daughters, her heart breaking at the pain in their eyes. "Emma, Olivia," she started, her voice shaky. "What I did was unforgivable. I know that. After your dad died, I lost my way. The grief was so huge I could barely breathe, let alone take care of you both." She paused, struggling to find the right words. "I was sick, very sick, not physically, but here," she pointed to her head. "And here," she placed a hand over her heart. I thought you'd be better off without me. That someone would find you and give you the love and care I couldn't provide at the time." Emma cut her off, her voice filled with hurt. "But no one found us. We were alone, cold, hungry." Sarah sobbed, guilt etched into every line of her face. "I know, my love, and there are no words to tell you how much I regret it. If I could go back—" "But you can't," Emma shouted, tears finally spilling from her eyes. "We needed you." Michael placed a comforting arm around Emma while reaching out to Olivia with the other. "Emma, Olivia," he said gently, "I know you're angry and hurt. You have every right to feel that way, but your mom is here now, wanting to make things right. Can we at least listen to her?" Olivia nodded timidly, while Emma crossed her arms, still reluctant but no longer protesting. Sarah went on, describing her battle with depression, how she had spiraled after James's death. She spoke about the years of therapy, her slow climb back to sanity, and the constant regret that consumed her. "I thought of you every single day," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "There wasn't a moment I didn't wish I could go back and do things differently. I love you both so much, my girls, more than life itself." A heavy silence followed. Olivia finally broke it, her voice small yet clear. "Do you still love us?" she asked, looking at Sarah with eyes full of hope and fear. Sarah felt her heart crumble and rebuild itself all at once. "Oh, my love," she said, opening her arms wide. "I never stopped loving you. You're my life, my heart." Hesitantly, Olivia rose from the sofa and walked toward Sarah. Emma tried to hold her back, but Michael gently stopped her. With unsteady steps, Olivia approached her mother. Sarah remained still, arms open, tears streaming down her face. When Olivia finally reached her, Sarah enveloped her in a gentle hug, as if afraid she might break. "Mommy," Olivia sobbed, burying her face in Sarah's chest. The sound shattered something inside Emma. With a muffled cry, she ran to join the embrace. Sarah wrapped both daughters in her arms, years of pain and longing dissolving into tears and sobs. Michael watched, tears in his own eyes. He knew this was only the beginning of a long healing process, but it was a start. In the days and weeks that followed, the family began a delicate reconstruction process. Sarah started intensive therapy, determined to face her inner demons and become the mother her daughters deserved. Michael fully supported Sarah's decision to reclaim her role as mother, but insisted on a gradual, supervised process. He hired a family therapist to help them navigate the turbulent waters of reconciliation. A new routine emerged. Family dinners became a nightly ritual, with everyone sharing stories of their day. Weekends were spent together, visiting parks, the zoo, or just going for walks around the neighborhood. Not everything was easy, of course. There were tense moments when old fears resurfaced. Emma, in particular, struggled with anger and mistrust. Some nights, she refused to speak to Sarah, locking herself in her room. "Give her time," Michael would tell Sarah during those moments. Trust is rebuilt slowly. Family therapy proved invaluable. Under a professional's guidance, They learned to express their feelings in healthy ways, listen to each other, and work together to heal old wounds. Gradually, the twins began to readjust to Sarah's constant presence. She devoted herself to being involved in their daily lives, helping with homework, attending school events, simply being there for the ordinary moments that make up a childhood. Michael balanced his work with his new role as head of this reconstituted family. He cut back his hours at the office, delegating more responsibilities so he could be present at home. One evening during dinner, Olivia asked a question that took everyone by surprise. "Could we do something to remember Dad?" she asked timidly. Silence fell over the table. Sarah and Michael exchanged glances, realizing that in their rush to rebuild the family, they had neglected James's memory. "Of course we can, sweetheart," Sarah answered, her voice thick with emotion. "What would you like to do?" That was how they decided to create a memorial for James in the mansion's garden. Over the next few weekends, the entire family worked together to build a beautiful rose garden, James's favorite flower, with a commemorative plaque and a bench to sit and remember him. As the months went by, the family dynamic continued to evolve. Emma gradually lowered her defenses, allowing herself to trust Sarah again. Olivia blossomed under the love and attention of both parents, and Sarah, with Michael's unwavering support and her own therapy, grew stronger and more confident every day in her role as a mother. During a particularly joyful dinner, about 6 months after their initial reunion, Sarah made a proposal that would once again change the course of their lives. "I've been thinking," she began, hesitant, looking at both Michael and the girls. Maybe I could move in here, so we can all be together." A tense silence followed. Michael looked at the twins, making it clear that the decision was theirs. Emma and Olivia exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations only twins seem able to have. Finally, Emma turned to Sarah, a small smile playing on her lips. "I guess we have a spare room," she said. The joy on Sarah's face was contagious. Michael smiled, feeling a sense of completeness he hadn't experienced in decades. Over the following weeks, they worked together to transform one of the guest rooms into a space for Sarah. The girls helped choose the colors and decorations, turning the process into a family activity. On the day Sarah officially moved in, they held a small celebration. Sitting in the garden next to James's memorial, Michael gazed at his reunited family, a deep sense of gratitude washing over him. "James would be proud," he said quietly, raising his glass in a silent toast. Sarah squeezed his hand, tears of happiness in her eyes. Emma and Olivia nestled between them, forming a circle of love and forgiveness. In that perfect moment, they all felt truly at home. The long and painful journey had shaped them, but so had love, forgiveness, and second chances. The family fate had torn apart was finally whole again, stronger because of the trials they had faced, and ready to face whatever the future might bring, together. As the sun set on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the garden, the family stayed there, enjoying their hard-won moment of peace and togetherness. James's memorial glowed gently in the twilight, a silent reminder of the love that had united them and the hardships they had overcome. Michael looked at Sarah, at Emma and Olivia, feeling a wave of emotion as he realized how much their lives had changed in recent months. From strangers brought together by an accident, they had become a real family, with all the complexities and joys that entails. "I think it's time we head inside," Michael said softly, noticing the girls starting to yawn. Walking back to the house hand in hand, each of them knew that although the path ahead might still hold challenges, they would face them together. The Blackwood mansion, once a symbol of Michael's solitude, had become a true home, filled with love, forgiveness, and hope for the future. In the weeks following Sarah's move into the Blackwood mansion, life settled into a comfortable routine. Mornings were filled with the joyful chaos of family breakfasts, followed by the rush to get the twins to school. Sarah and Michael found a balance, sharing parenting duties and supporting each other. However, Sarah began noticing subtle changes in her body. She initially blamed extra fatigue and occasional nausea on the stress of adapting to her new life. But as the symptoms persisted and intensified, A suspicion formed in her mind. One morning, while Michael took the twins to school, Sarah took the opportunity to schedule a discreet doctor's appointment. Sitting in the waiting room, she couldn't stop twisting her hands, her thoughts a whirlwind of possibilities and worries. "Sarah Bennett," the nurse called, pulling her from her anxious reverie. The examination was quick and efficient. When the doctor returned with the results, his gentle smile confirmed Sarah's suspicions before he even spoke. "Congratulations, Ms. Bennett. You're about 6 weeks pregnant." The words hit Sarah like lightning. Pregnant. At 38, with 2 daughters she had barely reclaimed, she was pregnant again. The drive back home was a blur. Sarah hardly remembered steering the car, her mind swirling with conflicted emotions. Joy, fear, guilt, hope, all colliding in her heart. Arriving at the mansion, Sarah retreated to her room, needing a private moment to process the news. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she placed a hand over her still flat belly, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. "How can I do this right this time?" she whispered to herself. "How can I possibly deserve this second chance?" Memories of her past, of abandoning Emma and Olivia, weighed heavily on her. But along with the guilt came a fierce determination. This child would be a chance at redemption, an opportunity to be the mother she'd always wanted to be from the start. The rest of the day passed in nervous agitation as Sarah waited for Michael to return, uncertain how he'd react to the news. When he got home from work, she asked him to step into the garden for a private conversation, away from the twins' curious ears. "Michael," she began, her voice trembling, "I have something I need to tell you." He looked at her with concern, noticing how on edge she seemed. "What is it, Sarah? Are you okay?" Sarah took a deep breath, summoning courage. I'm pregnant." The silence that followed felt endless. Sarah watched a series of emotions cross Michael's face: surprise, confusion, and finally pure, radiant joy. "Pregnant?" he repeated, a smile slowly spreading across his face. "Sarah, that's wonderful." He pulled her into a tight hug, tears of happiness in his eyes. "I know you must be scared," he said gently, "but we're in this together. I'll be by your side every step of the way." Relief flooded Sarah, and she let herself relax in Michael's arms, tears flowing freely. "What about the girls?" she asked, her worry evident. "How will we tell them?" Michael pulled back slightly, keeping his hands on her shoulders. "We'll do it together. How about a special dinner tomorrow night?" "We can let them know then." Sarah nodded, feeling lighter and more confident with Michael's support. Together, they planned the dinner, deciding to create a warm, festive atmosphere for the big announcement. The next evening, the dining table was set with the finest dishes and lit by candles. Emma and Olivia exchanged curious glances, sensing that something important was about to happen. After dessert, Michael cleared his throat, capturing everyone's attention. "Girls," he began, "your mum and I have some very special news to share with you." Sarah took Michael's hand, her heart pounding. "Emma, Olivia," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "you're going to have a little brother or sister. I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was broken by Olivia's squeal of delight. "A baby. We're going to have a baby in the family." Emma, on the other hand, remained quiet, her face reflecting a storm of conflicting emotions. You're not going to leave us again, are you?" she finally asked, her voice small and uncertain. Sarah felt her heart break. She got up and knelt beside Emma's chair, taking her hands in her own. "Never again, my love," she promised, tears in her eyes. "I'm here to stay. All of us. You, Olivia, Michael, and this baby. We're a family, and families stick together." Slowly, a tentative smile appeared on Emma's face. She looked at Michael for confirmation, and he nodded encouragingly. "So," Emma said slowly, "I'm going to be a big sister." "The best big sister," Sarah affirmed, pulling Emma into a hug. The tension in the room lifted, replaced by a celebratory mood. Olivia peppered everyone with questions about the baby, while Emma, still a bit hesitant, began to warm to the idea. Later that night, after the girls had gone to bed, Sarah and Michael sat on the porch, reflecting on the day's events. "You know," Michael said thoughtfully, This whole experience has made me realize there are so many kids out there who need help, just like Emma and Olivia did. Sarah nodded, understanding immediately. You're thinking of doing something about it. Michael smiled, taking Sarah's hand. What if we started a foundation to help orphan children and families in need? We could make a real difference. Sarah's eyes sparkled with excitement. Michael, that's a wonderful idea. We could involve the girls too, teach them the importance of helping others. They spent the rest of the evening discussing plans for the foundation, their hearts brimming with hope for the future. The arrival of the new baby would not just expand their family, but also be the catalyst for something bigger, something that could positively impact countless lives. In the following days, the Blackwood mansion buzzed with joyful anticipation. Emma and Olivia spent hours debating baby names and planning how to decorate their siblings' future room. Sarah, supported by Michael's constant love and the girls' growing excitement, began to fully embrace her pregnancy. Each bout of morning sickness, every small bodily change, was met not with fear, but with gratitude and hope. As the family prepared for this new chapter in their lives, there was a palpable sense that this baby represented more than just a new life. It was a symbol of redemption, of second chances, and of the transformative power of love and forgiveness. The mansion, once a place of solitude for Michael, now overflowed with life and possibility. And as the sun set on yet another day, the Blackwood family gazed into the future with full hearts and bright smiles, ready for the adventures ahead. Sarah and Michael remained on the porch for a long time, enjoying the night's quiet and the sense of anticipation that filled the air. Their hands were entwined. A simple gesture weighted with their shared experiences and the promise of a future together. "It's funny," Sarah murmured, breaking the silence, "how life can change so quickly. A few months ago, I wouldn't have dared dream of a moment like this." Michael squeezed her hand gently. "And now here we are, planning not just a new family member, but also a way to give back to the world." They exchanged a glance filled with mutual understanding and love. The road ahead would be challenging, but they would face it side by side. As they stood to go inside, Michael rested his hand softly on Sarah's still flat belly. "Welcome to the family, little one," he whispered. "We can't wait to meet you." With one last look at the starry sky, the couple stepped indoors, leaving behind a chapter filled with surprises and stepping into the next, a chapter brimming with hope and new possibilities. 8 months flew. The Blackwood mansion, once a symbol of loneliness, now bristled with life and expectation. Emma and Olivia, who had just turned 8, were practically bursting with excitement over the imminent arrival of their baby brother. It was during the girls' birthday week that Sarah went into labor. The hospital bustled with the Blackwood family's anxious presence. Michael, Emma, and Olivia took turns going back and forth between the waiting room and Sarah's suite, offering loving words of encouragement. After hours of waiting, the newborn's cries echoed down the corridor. Michael, who had stayed by Sarah's side through the entire delivery, emerged from the room with tears in his eyes and a radiant smile. "It's a boy," he announced, his voice thick with emotion. "Thomas James Blackwood." Emma and Olivia jumped for joy, hugging their grandfather and each other. Minutes later, they quietly entered the room, where Sarah lay resting with little Thomas in her arms. "Hi there, little brother," Olivia whispered, approaching cautiously. Emma, ever protective, wrapped an arm around her sister. "He's so tiny," she observed, awestruck. Sarah smiled, exhausted but glowing. "Do you want to hold him?" Gently, she handed Thomas to Michael, who carefully showed the baby to the twins. The moment was magical. Emma and Olivia, once abandoned and alone, were now proud big sisters, part of a loving, complete family. Michael could not stop the tears as he cradled his son for the first time. He looked from Sarah to the twins, then back to the baby, an overwhelming tide of love and gratitude sweeping over him. "Welcome to the world, Thomas James," he whispered. "You have an amazing family waiting for you." Coming home was a joyful yet challenging adjustment. The mansion, already filled with life, now resonated with a baby's cries and the twins' laughter. Emma and Olivia took turns helping with their little brother, proud of their new responsibilities. A few weeks later, once the family had settled into a new routine, the big day arrived, the official launch of the Blackwood Children's Foundation. The event was held in a grand ballroom, filled with dignitaries, press, and supporters. Michael, impeccable in his suit, opened the ceremony with a moving speech about second chances and the power of love. Next, to everyone's surprise, Sarah took the stage with Thomas peacefully sleeping in her arms. "Not long ago," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I was the perfect example of someone who desperately needed help. I lost my way, made terrible mistakes, but through love, compassion, and a series of miracles, I'm here today." She gazed lovingly at Emma and Olivia, sitting in the front row. "My daughters taught me the true meaning of strength and forgiveness. And now, with the arrival of Thomas, our family is complete. This foundation is our way of giving back, of extending a hand to other children and families who need a second chance." There wasn't a dry eye in the ballroom when Sarah finished. Michael embraced her. Thomas nestled between them, as the audience rose in a standing ovation. Then, to everyone's delight, Emma and Olivia took the stage. With surprising confidence for their age, they presented their project, a first aid training program for kids. "Our dad taught us that knowledge can save lives," Emma explained. "And we want to share that knowledge," Olivia added. Michael returned to the microphone, announcing ambitious plans for national expansion of the foundation. As he spoke, flashbacks of their journey played in his mind: the accident, the girls saving his life, the desperate search, and the emotional reunion with Sarah. The event's high point came when the entire family gathered on stage. Sarah, holding Thomas, Michael at her side, and Emma and Olivia up front, smiling proudly. It was a powerful image, a family that had overcome the impossible, united now with a purpose greater than themselves. "And now," Michael announced, "I'd like to unveil the name of our main training center." A curtain was pulled back, revealing a plaque, "James Thompson Training Center, in honor of a true hero." Emma and Olivia gasped, tears welling up in their eyes. They turned and hugged Sarah, who also cried quietly. "Daddy would be so proud," Emma whispered. Michael watched, his heart overflowing with emotion. The family he never knew he wanted was now the center of his world. A few days later, the Blackwood mansion was decorated for an intimate celebration, the twins' belated birthday and Thomas's arrival. In the garden, under the stars, the family gathered. Sarah sat in a rocking chair, nursing Thomas quietly. Emma and Olivia, dressed in party clothes, prepared to blow out the candles on a large cake. "Make a wish," Michael said, smiling. The twins exchanged glances and grinned. "We don't need to," Olivia said. "We already have everything we could want." "It's true," Emma agreed. "Who would have thought that awful day at the traffic light would lead us here?" Sarah looked at her daughters, tears of happiness in her eyes. "You two are our little heroes. You saved more than one life that day." Michael joined them, placing his arms around the twins. "You saved us all in a way. You brought us together." As the family laughed and chatted, celebrating their personal miracle, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. On the wall of the house, lit by the soft glow of garden lanterns, a photo of James smiled down at them, as if blessing the scene below. Night went on, and the Blackwood mansion windows glowed warmly, a beacon of hope and love amid the darkness. Inside, a family once torn apart by fate and then miraculously reunited, rested, grateful for the gift of love and redemption and hopeful for the future they would build together. As the night grew late, the celebration wound down. The twins, exhausted but happy, were taken to bed, each giving their new baby brother a gentle forehead kiss before going upstairs. Sarah and Michael stayed in the garden a bit longer, Thomas sleeping soundly in his mother's arms. They gazed at the stars, wrapped in a comfortable silence. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" Sarah asked softly. Michael smiled, taking her free hand. "Not in my wildest dreams, but I wouldn't trade this for anything." They shared a look filled with love and mutual gratitude before standing to go inside. Passing by James's photo, both paused, smiling at the man who, in his own way, had made all this possible. One by one, the lights in the Blackwood mansion went out, until only the soft glow of the nursery's nightlight remained. The house, once a lonely symbol, was now truly a home, filled with love, forgiveness, and optimism for what lay ahead. And so, under the starry sky's watch, the Blackwood family slept, brought together by fate, strengthened by love, and ready to face any challenges the future might bring together. 8 months flew by once more, and life in the Blackwood mansion had settled into a happy routine. Thomas, no longer a newborn, babbled and giggled as Emma and Olivia played with him. Sarah and Michael watched with grateful hearts, remembering all the obstacles they had overcome to reach this point. A family shaped by tragedy, but redeemed by love, forging ahead united into whatever tomorrow would bring.